friends, what's up? Welcome back to a new video. So today I'm going to be talking about my interview experience at Optus. So for those of you who don't already know, Optus is a big telco or telecommunications company based in Australia. So I applied for the graduate program for 2022 and I believe it doesn't actually start until April, which is fairly late since I think most people start like February, March. But anyways, so I don't remember the exact day that I applied. I believe it was sometime during July. And then on the 13th of July, I got invited to do a digital interview. So just like a recording where you answer some questions. And I also had to do a psychometric assessment, but I think it was like gamified, so it was pretty chill, it wasn't too tough. And then I didn't hear back from them for like over 2 months, but on the 23rd of September, I got an email saying I had been invited to their assessment day, which I think like they had over 2,500 applicants, so pretty good achievement if you ask me. But anyways, so I did the assessment day on the 30th of September, and then about a week later on October 4th, I got emailed saying that I didn't make it through, or I didn't get the job because the assessment center was the last stage of the process. But yeah, anyways, so I'm going to start off talking about the video interview. So the first question was, please introduce yourself and tell us why you want to work for Optus. So this is a fairly basic question. They're not really trying to trip you up, you know, you just gotta talk a little bit about yourself. I think I always try to keep it pretty general. So I just say, you know, what I'm studying, where I'm from, that kind of thing. And then in terms of why Optus, I guess I just talked about like studying information systems and how like business and technology, you know, would be a good fit for their company. And then the second question was, tell me about a time you had to learn a new skill or procedure and describe the steps you took to ensure you were successful. So I talked about when I was in uni, I had to learn Python for a specific course. So basically I said how like it was really difficult and I failed the first couple assignments, but you know, didn't give up, kept on going, blah blah blah. Second question was, describe a time of an example you built a positive relationship with somebody to achieve a better result or solve a problem. So I talked about my time working at Rainbow's End, where basically we would have a bunch of new staff all the time. So I just, you know, try and be friendly, try and like build good relationships with people so that when it came to the busy times like lunchtime rushes and stuff, you know, we could overcome those situations. Next question was, tell me about a time where you had a month or more to prepare for an important task. I think I talked about my driving test and how I just like, you know, kept on practicing day in, day out, made sure that like I knew the route, made sure that, you know, I researched all the common mistakes and like mitigated against those. So yeah, another pretty basic question. You can talk about like exams, you can talk about, I don't know, any projects that you're doing. So yeah, pretty basic question. And then the next question was, describe a time where you set challenging goal for yourself and how did you achieve these goals? So I talked about my exchange to Italy, which once again, you know, super interesting for me. It's just kind of like, I've talked about it a million times, so I'm a bit over it. But if you've done anything like traveling, people love to hear it, so definitely include it. And then the last question I think was, describe a time where you had to adapt to a substantial change while working on a project at school or uni. So I decided to talk about COVID. Honestly, pretty generic. I feel like everyone and anyone could use that example these days. But yeah, basically I just talked about how everything shifted from, you know, in-person to online studies, and I had to adapt really quickly. I had to manage my time properly and, you know, try and like be free from distractions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was the video interview. So it was fairly long, to be honest. I think there was 6 or 7 questions. So it took probably, I don't know, 15-20 minutes. And then yeah, like I said, there was another psychometric test. I don't remember the specifics, so please don't ask me, but I don't think it was too difficult. It was more like I think it was multi-choice, and then you also got like sense, you know, the like insights afterwards, so you can learn a little bit more about yourself, I guess. So now moving on to the actual assessment center, which I guess is the bulk of the interview process. The assessment center started at 10 a.m. Sydney time. So there's a 3-hour difference currently with New Zealand. So it was 1 p.m. New Zealand time. And then I think it lasted about 5 hours, which to be honest is too long in my opinion. But you know, it is the last stage of the process, so I guess they wanted to make it more like thorough. But yeah, 5 hours for a video interview, like, that is not okay. Anyways, so yeah, it started at okay, I'm gonna use New Zealand times, but if you're in Australia, just like -3 hours. So it started at 1 p.m. for me. And then basically just a quick like acknowledgement of country, which we love to see. And then we started off with a quick icebreaker, and then that lasted about 20 minutes. So I think you just had to introduce yourself, like say a fact about yourself and like what you're studying, you know, just the basic kind of stuff, why you wanted to work for Optus. Yeah, and then that lasted about half an hour, 30 minutes. We got basically a presentation for another 20 minutes about like just the company, and some people, I think recent graduate and like a manager, spoke about what it's like to work there. There was, you know, some like question and answers. After that, we had a break for about another half an hour. 2:30 started the group activity. So we got put into, I think, 3 or 4 different groups. So each group had about 4 people. And yeah, just your typical, you know, group case study situation where you get a problem and then you have to work it out in a group. And normally you have to do a presentation at the end. So we decided to just make like a quick little PowerPoint and yeah, just discuss the situation. And I think I did okay. Definitely wasn't like the loudest person in the group, but I also feel like I contributed a good amount, so I think I did okay. So that lasted about an hour. Then after that, we had another half an hour break. So then logged on back at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. we started off with a quick little Kahoot, just like trivia about Optus. That lasted 20 minutes. And then at 4:20, that's when we had our individual interviews. So they did it in kind of like 3 separate groups. So I was luckily in the first batch, so I got my interview done, and then I basically had like, you know, the rest of the day free. But some other people were in like the second and the third rotations, I guess. So they had like an hour to go relax and then come back and do the interview later. So the way the interviews worked was that there were 4 different panels and they were 10 minutes each. So I think each of the interviews kind of had a theme. So I didn't actually mention this, but the day before we got sent another case study. Where we had to talk about tofu, which is like their value system, I guess. So it's about like taking ownership and following up. So we had to talk about like, I don't know, situations where I guess like we took ownership or what that kind of means to us. And we got a specific like case study and we had to describe what the problems were and how like they could improve. There were the panel interviews. They were each kind of themed. So the first one for me was behavioral. So I definitely think this was my weakest one because I was just like, for some reason, I just like was not prepared at all, and it just really threw me off and I didn't know how to answer the questions. Yeah, I think they asked one about like name a time where you made a promise that you couldn't keep, or name a time where you were, you know, like a bad team member, how did you deal with it, and that kind of thing. And I just couldn't really think of anything, so I gave really generic answers. But I think when they ask about these types of situations, they want you to go very specific, very in depth of like one exact situation and what exactly you did to rectify it, and you know the conclusion and the solution and how it worked well for you. The second one for me was a bit more technical, so it was about like skills. They didn't ask anything too in depth, but they definitely did ask like why you wanted to work at Optus, like why you chose, you know, their company in particular. And I can't believe I said this, but I was literally like I don't know, like to be honest, I did apply for other companies as well. So yeah, don't say that, guys. Like what? Why did I do that? Anyway, so that was that. And then the third one was the presentation. So like I said before, we were all given a case study, so we had to present that. And then you get asked a couple follow-up questions. I remember getting asked to name a specific example where you saw somebody, you know, like taking ownership in a work setting. And again, I didn't have an answer, which I probably should have, but you know, what can you do? And then yeah, the last one was probably the most chill panel, I guess. It's pretty easy. It was more of a conversation, and they just asked you like, why are you interested you know, in this role, like what kind of things do you want to do for your career, and like what do you like to do in your spare time, and that kind of thing. So it's pretty chill. So yeah, the interviews for me finished at 5 o'clock, which would have been 2 p.m. Sydney time. And then they asked us to come back about 2 hours later just for like a final 5-minute briefing thing, I guess. So I logged on back at like 7:20, and to be honest, it was kind of pointless. Like, I didn't need to go. Because they literally just said like, okay, thanks for everyone for doing this interview and we'll get back to you in a week, and like that was it. So yeah, that's my experience. Hopefully you guys found it interesting or a little bit helpful. I'm not sure if they're still recruiting, so maybe if you're watching this video it's probably already the next year. But yeah, if you do have an interview at Optus, I would just say, first of all, just relax. It's really nothing too difficult. Like, you know, the individual interviews are probably the hardest part for me, and again, they were still not that bad. Like, they were only 10 minutes max. So just make sure you're prepared to talk about some situations, like in terms of, you know, problems that you've solved, like times where you've been dealt, like, you know, tough challenges and that kind of thing. And also definitely have a good reason why it is specifically that you want to work for Optus in particular. And yeah, that's kind of it really. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Ciao!